Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Hobbies and Happiness Podcast, a Disney Lorcana podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
I'm Jim, and today we're going to have an intro to deck building in Disney Lorcana.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week of the Hobbies and Happiness Podcast. Jim, it's always good to see you, my friend. Always
Hello.
Good to see you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know how it works. We gotta do what we gotta do. Our intros. We gotta get through a few talking points before we get into this episode, and we need to run through it because, guys, we have a lot to talk about in today's episode. I'm excited for this one. I genuinely am. So, let's get into the episode. So let's go through these things. So first of all, hey. Do you like YouTube content? Do you like watching us on the YouTube? If you do, don't forget, if you're watching us, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on bell notifications so you can be notified when we release more episodes of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast. And when we release more Disney Lorcana related content over on YouTube, hit the like button, sub to the channel. It really helps us out in the algorithm. And if you enjoy the content, share it with a friend. If you think somebody would benefit from this episode, share it with them. It really helps us out over on YouTube. And if you like listen to us in your ear holes, hey, you know what? We're on pretty much every podcasting platform that there is. So if we're on your favorite podcasting platform, don't forget, hit that plus button and subscribe to the podcast. You know, it's H+H, the plus button. Hit that plus button and add the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, a Disney Lorcana podcast, to your podcast subscriptions. Additionally, if you want to support us even more than just doing those things, you can support us over on Patreon. Our Patreon is patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. Links are down below in the description of the video and down below in the podcast notes, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube. Click the link again, patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. You can find out more about how you can support us over on that platform. We enjoy posting over there. You can get some behind the scenes peeks about what kind of content we're doing over there, and it really helps us. It helps us help you further support us financially. So again, if you want to learn more about how you can support us over on Patreon, that link is patreon.com/hobbies and happiness. Since we're talking about Patreon, we always got to give a big shout out to all of our patrons, whether you're at the common tier, the rare tier, or the legendary tier. Thank you to each and every one of our Patreon patrons. That's how you can say that. You can say it like that. So, all right. Again, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate all of your support. And if you're listening and watching, thank you so much. It means the world to us. Okay. All right, guys, there's a lot to get to in today's episode. So when we were talking about doing this episode, so this is a 10,000-foot overview of deck building in Disney Lorcana. Again, if you've never built a deck before, it's okay. I know it's daunting. Jim, what was it like building your first deck in any card game? What was that experience like for you?
Exhilarating.
Yeah. but let me ask you though, okay? Because when you were building that deck, did you have an idea of how to build a deck, or were you like going in blind?
Oh, just going in blind, kind of.
Yeah.
Like I knew how they made it on Yu-Gi-Oh, and I knew some of the rules, but I was kind of just throwing a lot of one-ofs in. So I played a lot of singleton.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, just my own decks were singleton.
Right.
Everyone else was playing like actual good stuff, maybe. But yeah, I didn't really know, even though I knew the rules of you can play up to 3. But I was only putting one-ofs, probably because I only had like one-ofs.
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah, which happens, yeah.
Yeah, I was 9 and 10.
There you go. And there's a lot of 9 and 10-year-olds playing Disney Lorcana, let me tell you, and which is great, which is great. I remember building my first deck. I didn't know what I was doing. Had to follow somebody else's YouTube video and followed it, and I didn't really understand that deck building really is. It's both an art and a science. Today's episode, we're really going to go over more of the art. We're going to delve into a little bit of the science, but we're really going to talk a lot about the art, and I don't mean the art on the cards. I'm meaning the art of deck building. Because it really is. Well, Jim, would you agree with that statement? Deck building is both an art and a science?
Oh, 100%, man. 100%.
Well, okay, let me ask you, is it more art or is it more science to you? What would you think?
I think it depends on how deep into the competitive rabbit hole you want to go.
Right. Very true.
It's 100% depends.
Yes, correct. I would.
But if you're getting down to the most nitty gritty,
yep,
I would say it's a more science.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's when you're arguing with other people about like ratios and numbers of do you run a full play set? Do you only run 3? Do you only run 2? Yep. I'm only running one of.
And then it's also like, oh, well, since this is also in the meta, I need to know that these cards are going to be seen at roughly this time frame. What are the odds of this?
Correct.
There's so much science behind it, man.
Yep. And if you're listening to that and you're immediately scared, don't be. The only reason we're really talking about this in particular, what we're bringing up here, is because deck building, again, it touches on literally every single format. And with our formats, we're talking about multiplayer formats, right? We're not as concerned about ratios and numbers of and having to have answers to the meta, right? But again, these are all foundational concepts that I think really you need to know. And I think you should at least have a good concept and grasp of. And that's why we're starting at point 0. This is going to be our point 0 for Disney Lorcana. Again, this is our intro to deck building, okay? So we are going to have more, as the podcast continues, as we do more content, we're going to have more in-depth episodes in the future, talking about deck building, okay? But I think what we're really going to do in this episode, the target application from a deck building standpoint, we're mostly going to, if we get into numbers or anything, we're really going to be focusing more on core constructed decks, okay? Because again, even in our multiplayer formats, we're still playing, they're still core constructed decks, okay? They still follow similar rules, okay? Now, maybe in the future we move on to something like Heroic, where we're talking about a 100 deck singleton format. Okay, we're very interested in that format, and again, who knows? Maybe if Heroic, takes off and really takes hold in the community, maybe that's where we turn our focus to. Because in all honesty, again, we're all about the multiplayer social format, and if that's where the social, if that's the social format,
that's where the crowd goes.
Yeah. I have zero qualms with doing that and going there. So, but just know, if we talk numbers, we'd focus more so on core constructed decks. Okay. All right. So from here on out, I think I have about 7 totals, 5 additional points, I believe. Okay. So when we talk about deck building, the first point that I have here, it's personal. This is your deck. Okay, especially when we're talking about a multiplayer social format, it's so much easier to make a deck yours. You're building, because a lot of the times you're building something from scratch. I can't tell you. We've talked in the past, right, about building your fun deck, okay, and bringing it to your local Lorcana league, and then you proceed to lose every game because everybody at your league is playing a meta deck, okay? These types of formats, multiplayer social formats, right? They help to, and I think they incidentally, this isn't on purpose, it just incidentally happens, but it helps to level out the playing field, quote unquote, as these are social formats in nature. Okay, if you're bringing a deck to a more social format, if you know that what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and you just want to have a fun time with everybody, you're more apt to bring something that's, hey, fun. I'm trying to do this fun little cool thing. Okay. That is one of the joys to me of these social formats. Okay. Jim, how many times have you seen on social media or you've heard, hey, I have this fun deck that I built around this thing? How many times have you heard that in Disney Lorcana specifically?
It definitely has happened quite a couple.
These are the types of formats for those decks.
There's too many cool cards out there, man.
There's too many cool cards, and there's too many cool synergies, tribes, movies, characters. There's so many cool things. And the community is yearning for places to play those decks, build those decks and actually do something cool and fun with them. And they're more apt to come back and do that again when they do the cool thing and even are competitive and win. Like they don't even necessarily, I don't think they have to necessarily win, but I think they need to be in contention of winning, right? Because you and I think have both experienced this, right? Where there's a different feeling if you have 0 lore in your last place and you have no shot at winning versus, hey, I got second, or if it would have gotten back to me, I would have won. Like those are completely, I mean, in your experience, like those are completely different feelings, right? When you're done with the game, it feels totally different.
Yeah. I mean, it's completely different from when you just get completely stomped versus, you know what? I was actually able for like a turn or two be able to just get a bunch of lore. And sure, they stopped me.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you were saying, if it did get back to your turn, you could have won. But, you know, you still got to play your deck and do even a little bit of a pop-off.
Right.
You know, even if you didn't win, you still got to do something your deck was looking to accomplish.
Right. And that right there is a great feeling. Is being able to do what your deck needs to do, and then potentially put yourself in a position to potentially win. That feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so good, and the community is yearning to be able to do that. I feel like I'm gonna beat this point to a pulp. Because I've heard this so many times, right? I have these fun decks and I want to play them, but it's not fun when everybody's playing Ruby Amethyst, Emerald Steel, like the meta, and I just get completely demolished. There needs to be an outlet for people to be able to play those decks. And that is what multiplayer provides. That is what social formats provide. Okay, so on the same point, right? Building a fun deck. Part of that too is it's personal. When people do it, it's personal in some way, shape, or form to them. With Disney, with this being a Disney game, okay, you have these characters. It's Disney Lorcana. The nostalgia is just, this game is dripping with nostalgia for folks our age, right? It's dripping with nostalgia. So here's 2 easy ways you can make your deck more personal to you. Favorite movies, favorite character. Jim, what are some of your favorite movies that you very much want to build a deck around?
You know, I do love me some Frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love me some Mulan.
If you
do have some really good cards for both of those movies.
Yes. If you could only do one of those, what's at the top? Which one is at the top of your list?
Oh my goodness, dude, man! We just got a really awesome new legendary for Mulan. You know, that card looks really cool.
It does.
I love being able to do a little bit of spread damage, but. I mean, I love Elsa way too much.
Yep. And there's a lot of good Elsas. There's some bad Elsas, but there's a lot of really good ones. So I think for me, the top of my list, if I had to pick 2, I'm going with Aladdin and Great Mouse Detective. Have a lot of great memories. I've talked about Aladdin, so much already on this podcast. But I think Aladdin and Great Mouse Detective are definitely at the top of my list. And we have a lot of great cards from Aladdin. I mean, we've got Aladdin, we got Genie, we got Abu, we've got a Carpet. I want more Carpet cards because Carpet, one of my favorite characters in that movie. We have a lot of Jafars. We've got Iago. I'm waiting on Sultan. There's so many, honestly. There's so many characters that we have in Lorcana already. And Great Mouse Detective is another one. I will admit, I was very surprised to see this much support from the Great Mouse Detective as we have already. So those are 2 movies that spoiler alert here, guys. We're already talking about what heroic decks we want to build, and the first one I want to do is something with Aladdin, the Aladdin franchise. So I'm thinking Genie, Iago, and then Friend Like Me. There we go.
You know, so Dan, I was thinking about what my favorite character from Aladdin is. And sure, I might have never seen this movie, right? I might have never seen it.
You hurt me. It hurts me.
But I have to go with the caterpillar centipede pot monster. You remember that one?
That's never in the movie. That's only in Kingdom Hearts.
It's the only character I know, Dan.
But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about from Kingdom Hearts 2.
The first one.
Oh, you're right. It is from the first one. Yes, it is from the first one. Yeah. That's when Agrabah was very tiny. Agrabah was very small.
You know what's weird about that monster though?
Yeah.
So Jasmine falls into one of those pots, right? But if you were able to break open every single one of those pots, you don't find Jasmine.
Yeah, it's really weird.
How does that make any sense?
It doesn't. She's then gone. Yeah. Yeah, when I was young, I was like, well, this makes no sense. Where did she go?
0 sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So, so one way is you can build around your favorite movies. And then another way that you could build around, like build a deck, make it personal to you, is include your favorite characters. Be like, hey, this deck is all some of my favorite characters. Jim, favorite characters? I think we all know. What do you got?
Man, nothing outparses Elsa for me, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
No, so Elsa's at the top of your list, huh?
Elsa's number one, baby.
Yeah.
Elsa number one.
Yeah. So I think there's so many great characters, right?
Oh, so many.
There's so many great ones. But I mean, Genie is probably one of the best characters for me from Aladdin specifically. One of my favorite characters from Great Mouse Detective actually was Ratigan. I've told this story before. Ratigan freaked me out when I was a kid. There's a point towards the end of that movie.
It's scary, dude.
Oh yeah, when he like legit, because throughout the entire movie, he's like, he's not a rat. He's like, don't call me a rat. I'm not a rat. Because he's sophisticated, right? Ratigan is sophisticated, and you don't equate a rat to being sophisticated. So, he was like, don't. He does. There's a card that literally says, "What did you call me?" I remember that point. What did you call me? He doesn't like to be called a rat. But at the end of the movie, he embraced his inner rat. And like he was going all out at Basil. And I'm like, I had nightmares. But he's a great character. Like the character development.
The character development.
Yeah. So there's a lot. But again, like what
Mufasa
is your
comes
favorite?
Out of nowhere and he's like, remember who you are.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm a rat.
I'm a rat. but again, like if you're listening or you're watching to this, like again, I'm sure if you've played this game, you already know, man, you've probably said to yourself, I want to build X deck. I want to build a Lion King deck. I want to build whatever. And the cool thing is this card pool is just going to keep growing and growing and growing. Next set, we're getting Rescue Rangers. We are getting Big Hero 6. We're getting a lot of new properties that are coming into the game, and that's exciting. Like this player base, we eat that stuff up. It's great. So the next thing I think we want to talk about when we talk about your deck, right? I think part of making a deck yours, okay, is you need to understand yourself. You need to understand what you like. You need to understand what you don't like. And then when it comes to card games and when it comes to playing the game, you need to understand like what options are out there. Like what buckets are there? And you kind of do need to know. You need to understand yourself. You need to understand what bucket you kind of fall into. And I'm using the term buckets just because, again, and I'm sure you've heard this term before, right? But when you're separating things out, it's like, okay, this is color X, Y, or Z. This goes into this bucket, and that bucket. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen this reel where there's this kid's toy, right? And there's different shapes. And it's a circle on the top of the box. You have like a circle, a square, a star, and a triangle. And it's a kid's toy, right? And is trying to teach the children, match shapes. Okay. And so this person is putting all the toys in the box, right? And there's somebody watching, okay, like a teacher or something, right? And so the first one, she goes, oh, it's a circle. That one goes into, or I think it was a square or whatever. We'll say it's a square.
A square and a rectangle.
Yeah. So she takes the square. The person takes a square and then she goes, oh, that's a square. That goes right in the square. Yes. Awesome. So they put it in the square. The next one, that's a triangle. Okay. Now that one, again, leading, being like, that's going to go in the triangle slot. So starts putting in, that goes in they put it in the square, and then she's like, that's not, but no. Okay.
All they did was turn the piece and it fits.
Yeah, she turned the piece, it fits, and she's clearly already disappointed. The next piece is like I think it's a circle. Okay, I think it's like a circle. Okay, yeah. So it's a cylinder. Okay, she's like, okay, well, we'll forget that one, and takes that. This is right, it's a circle, it's a cylinder. Okay, and that goes in and they puts it in the square, and she's so defeated. She's like, no. And then the next one, they continue to do that with every single piece. It was one of the funniest videos I've ever. Clearly, I'm not doing it justice, but if you've ever seen that video, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah. But the reason I bring that up is understanding like what the pieces are and where they should go. Right. So the next thing I want to talk about is player archetypes. Understand yourself. Understand what you want to do, what you like to do, and what you're looking to get out of the game. We talked last week about the social contract, the Rule Zero conversation. Understanding what you want to get out of the game, okay? So player archetypes. Okay, how to best set yourself up for fun in multiplayer Disney Lorcana. Understand your play style. So Mark Rosewater, head designer of Magic the Gathering, wrote an article in March of 2002. My goodness, this is a long. This original article it came out. They reposted it again, I think, in 2013, but the original article was in 2002. Okay, it's describing the 3 player archetypes as Magic R&D saw them back then. Okay, I'll be sure to include this in the link of the description. Okay, or in the description. So there's 3. I will read this first one because this you'll see why. and then Jim will talk about the second one. Okay, but this first one. So there's. I won't even tell you the names. We'll tell you the names as we read them. Okay. So the first one is Timmy. Okay. So the way Mark described Timmy is what we in R&D call the quote unquote power gamer. Timmy likes to win big. He doesn't want to eke out a last minute victory. Timmy wants to smash his opponents. He likes his cards to be impressive, and he enjoys playing big creatures and big spells. You really should read this article because it's always interesting hearing from designers themselves and like why they say some of these things. I want to read these next 2 paragraphs from this article real quick. One of the misconceptions is that Timmy has to be young. While it's true that younger players are more apt to fall into this category, players of any age can be Timmy. This is true because ask Jim. Jim will tell you I've been a Timmy for a long time.
To this day.
What sets Timmy apart from the other 2 profiles is that Timmy is motivated by fun. All right, hear that? He's motivated by fun. He plays Magic because, again, this is all for Magic, right? He plays Magic because it's enjoyable. Timmy is very social. An important part of the game is sitting around with his friends. Timmy cares more about the quality of his win than the quantity of his wins. For example, Timmy sits down and plays 10 games. He only wins 3 games out of 10, but the 3 he wins, he dominates his opponent. Timmy had fun. Timmy walks away happy. This is one of my favorite articles like ever in the Magic space, just because it's so important and it helps inform every single player of every single card game, in all honesty. So that's Timmy. Jim's gonna read the next one.
Why you gotta read this one specifically, huh? All right, let's find out why.
Yeah.
Johnny is a creative gamer to whom magic is a form of self-expression. Johnny,
we're gonna errata this. This is actually we're gonna recall this. This is gonna be Jimmy.
Jimmy likes to win, but he wants to win with style. It's very important to Jimmy that he wins on his own terms. It's Johnny, okay? It's Johnny. All right, it hurts me to say Jimmy.
I know.
As such, it's important to Johnny that he uses his own deck. Playing Magic is an opportunity for Johnny to show off his creativity. Johnny likes a challenge. Johnny enjoys winning with cards that no one else wants to use. He likes making decks that win in innovative ways. Sorry, I'm laughing because I'm just like, dude, this is me so badly. Yeah, for everyone at home, this 100% is me. This is why Dan was like, hey, yo, read that. All right, here we go. What sets Jimmy apart from the other profiles is that I said Jimmy. Dang it. Oh my goodness. What sets Johnny apart is that Johnny enjoys deck building as much as or more than he enjoys playing. Oh my goodness, dude. If I had $1 for every time.
Right?
Man, I'll be like helping other people with their decks. Be like, yeah, we're getting you into this tournament. We're like play testing, blah blah blah. We're making changes, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm not even gonna play in this tournament.
That's
he loves cool interactions of the cards. He loves combo decks. Johnny is the happiest when he's exploring uncharted territories. The only thing here about me is I don't love combo decks.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't love combo decks.
You're not a big combo guy, but you are. You do love the deck building challenge.
Yeah.
That's definitely Jim. All right. So you've got Timmy, you've got Johnny, and this third archetype. You already know what it is. It's Spike. Spike is a competitive player. We all know him. Like I was talking about earlier,
I don't know if we all love them, but
you go to league and you play all the spikes. Spike is a competitive player. Spike wants to win. Spike enjoys winning. To accomplish this, Spike will play whatever the best deck is. Spike will copy decks off the internet. Spike will borrow other players' decks. To Spike, the thrill of Magic is the adrenaline rush of competition. Spike enjoys the stimulation of outplaying the opponent and the glory of victory. Yeah. We all know the Spike. The cool thing is in that article, R&D for the longest time didn't have a name for this profile. They just said the competitive player. I can't remember. Let me see if it mentions it in the article. Well, listen to this other sentence, right? Spike cares more about the quantity of his wins than the quality. For example, Spike plays 10 games and wins 9 of them. If Spike feels he should have won the 10th, he walks away unhappy. It's so true.
Oh man. Yeah.
But it's also important. So those are like the baseline player archetypes. And I know, again, this was written in 2002. These are the most basic ones. Okay. It's important to understand players do not fit easily into just one box. You might have some, you might fit into each of these categories at some point or another. There are some times where I'm Spike. Like if I'm playing at a tournament, okay, I'm Spike. Like that's what I'm doing. I don't care about anything else. What's going to set me up the best to win this tournament, right?
It is also very important to have a little bit of Spike in terms of knowing the meta decks, how to play them, and knowing how to play them, you also know how to play against them.
Yes, correct.
Correct. So if you're ever getting into a new card game or just like a new format competitively, start by copying the meta decks.
Yep.
Learn how to play this. Yep. And that's when you can then start to make little adjustments to decks, utilizing your own creativity with cards that you know can be extremely good against what these other decks are playing.
Yeah. Knowing the meta will help you play against it and tech for it and then build against it. Okay.
Yep.
So those are the most basic player profiles. So understand where you fit. Understand what playstyle you like to do. Are you a Timmy? Are you a Johnny? Are you Spike? Know what you like to do. Again, we talked about this last week. It's very important to understand yourself and understand what you are looking to accomplish in this game. Because we do need to step from, hey, I want to have fun. Okay, great. That's a great starting point. Okay. Now let's figure out how we can do that for you. Okay. If you want to have fun, let's figure out what's going to be fun for you. Do you want to be Timmy? Do you want to play the 10? Is it 10-10? Is Goofy a 10-10-4? Like, do you want to get the big Goofy out? You want to play the big stuff? Like, what are you looking to do? Do you want to, be aggressive? Like, what's going to be fun for you? Let's figure that. There's step 2. Okay. So now that we've talked about player archetypes, understanding ourselves, understanding the players, let's continue this discussion, right? So let's talk now about deck archetypes. Okay. If you've been around Disney Lorcana for any length of time, if you've watched a DLC, you have no doubt probably heard some of these terms that we're going to throw around and talk about right now. Aggro, control, and combo. These, and then we'll also talk about mid-range, okay? But your most basic ones are going to be aggro, control, and combo. Those are like your 3 basic deck archetypes, okay? Yep. So let's first talk about aggro. Jim, give us a brief description on what makes an aggro deck. What makes a deck aggro?
Do you guys want to play fast? Do you want to banish your opponent to the Shadow Realm as quickly as possible?
Yes.
You might like an aggro deck. Completely take them out of the game before they even get to start. Mm-hmm. That's what aggro is looking to do.
Yep.
You don't care about controlling your opponent's board. You don't care about draining their lore. No, it's you gain lore as fast as possible and end that game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yep. There's 2 big color combinations that come to mind when we talk about aggro. Now, you've probably heard this term thrown around a lot too, especially upon new set drops. It's hyper aggro. Yeah. Hyper aggro. There's 2 main color combinations that come to mind when we talk about this. It's amber amethyst and then amber emerald. The queen of those decks now through 5 sets is Daisy Duck. I think she's Donald's date, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, Donald's date.
1/4 that quests for 2. I mean, these decks are questing, like, every single one of the characters in the deck are questing for 2 or 3. And all they're looking to do is basically vomit out their hand and then quest. Okay. Aggro decks, I think if you're not prepared for it, you can get steamrolled very, very quickly. Yep. Aggro decks can run over control decks if they're not dealt with quickly. Okay. I talked last week about the first set champs I played in this season, where I'm playing a control deck, and I did not have pieces in my hand to be able to effectively deal with the board on turn 2 or 3. My opponent comes running out the gate on turn 1, quested for 2, and then they're questing for 4, now 6. Game's over by turn 4. So like that's aggro. Okay. And a lot of these decks that we've seen thus far, Jim, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we have many other big color combinations that we tend to see very aggressive strategies from outside of amber amethyst and amber emerald. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying in the metagame, those are the two that we tend to see the most of in this archetype.
Those 3 colors just have so many really good low to the ground characters to where with the other 3 colors, it's kind of just a different setup.
Yep.
Right. Like when you're looking at the meta with it, it's like, there's Amber Steel, but that's not really a very aggressive deck. It's looking to play a little bit of control, get a bit of value. It's still fast, but it's not hyper aggressive like how you would view one of these other decks.
Right. And also, again, let's talk about the term very quick. Aggro. What do we mean by aggro? Well, to me, something that's aggro in Disney Lorcana is something that you're questing consistently. You're questing for high numbers. Okay. Me challenging, if I'm challenging your character, that is not me being aggressive. That's me reacting to your board. And reacting is more of what control does. Control decks look to react. Being proactive is the aggressor. Proactive is you're questing. If you're all out questing, that's aggro. Okay. Yeah. So again, you Lilo making a wish, you Maleficent biding her time, you Pinocchio star attraction. If you're just dropping all these two lore questers, 3 lore questers on turns 1, 2, and 3, your opponent has to deal with it by turn 3. If they're not able to get out a grab your sword early, if they're not able to effectively answer your board, then hyper aggro is just going to win. So that is aggro. That's aggro. Okay. And that's how aggro, to me, and I think that's accurately how aggro is defined within Disney Lorcana. Okay. The next archetype let's talk about is control. All right, Jim, how would you describe what the control archetype does and is looking to do?
Do you want to grind out your games? Do you want them to take 10 plus turns? Do you want to watch your opponent just be miserable as you just keep clearing their board and they can't end this game? Yeah, that's what control's looking to do. It's exactly in the name. I stop my opponent from playing the game or being able to finish the game. I don't care if you were fast. You're looking to maybe get a little bit of value. No, nothing will outvalue me in the end game. Control takes all in the end.
Jim, I will say I'm very much enjoying your descriptions here. Very good.
It's like I've been playing for 20 years.
Right? I will say, if you're listening to the podcast and you're not watching us right now, Jim's face there was priceless. All right. So talking about control, there again, we have 2 big color combinations that are very prevalent in the current metagame. The first has been prevalent for a long time, since set 1. And then since set 2 is when the name kind of changed, but it's Ruby Amethyst control. I see it referenced a lot now as Ruby Amethyst bounce control, because it utilizes all of the Madam Mims, which bounce your stuff back to your hand.
Phenomenal cards. Who would have thought?
Which beautiful. I don't think those cards are going to go anywhere in the deck because they're just so good. So yeah, Ruby Amethyst has been around since set 1. The deck looked a little bit different from set 1 because there were no Madam Mims, there was no Merlin Rabbit. We got those cards in set 2. But yeah, again, if you've been around, you've heard Ruby Amethyst. You know what Ruby Amethyst does. It's the only color Ruby to have access to a board wipe and be prepared. Let's talk about the next deck real quick. It's Sapphire Ruby Sapphire items. Yeah. What's common in both of these? What color's common in both of these? Ruby. Ruby has, we talked about it last week, right?
Good.
It has the most removal. Has the most removal options and the best removal options. Yeah. You have the largest selection and you have the best selection of removal in the game. And if you're looking to control the board, you need it. You need access to the removal. And so control, if you're looking to play control, if you're not in Ruby, I think you're gonna have a hard time. I think if you want to play control, you have to be in Ruby. Thus far, again, we're talking. I should have mentioned this earlier, but again, like disclaimer, guys, game's a year old. You know, I love being able to have this conversation, but as I was putting this together, I was also thinking, I'm like, is this are we jumping the gun a little, right? Because this is so early, and we have a small card pool, but I do think we have enough cards to where we know what these colors do. We know what these colors are looking to do, and we know the color identity. So we can have these discussions. We're not guessing. The developers, the devs, Ravensburger, they've pretty much outlined, here's what these colors do. And if you want to do these things, you need to be in these colors. Okay.
Now, the thing about it, though, is yes, Ruby is pretty much like the control color.
Yeah.
But I do think this is highly dependent upon what the meta is. If it's very low to the ground, I think Steel outparses Ruby in terms of the early game, lower cost control cards. Yes, it's not an exact banish target character. It's deal 2 damage. It's deal 3 damage. But if you know for a fact that these cards are going to be taking out problematic cards before they even get to quest, because now I'm paying 1 cost for a Fire the Cannon. You know, I'm not having to pay 7 costs for a Be Prepared. I can now pay 5 to bring out Grab Your Swords and take out 3 characters, 2 whole turns prior.
Yeah.
So I think, Ruby's a control color, but, Steel is also a control color. It's just can be more prevalent depending upon the meta.
Right, but again, it's important to understand what the difference are. I'm not saying Steel can't do that, but I know. In that matchup, sure, Steel can be more of that control color. And again, that comes to understanding what the decks are and what they're looking to do within that matchup. Okay.
Yeah.
If I were to look at Steel, like Steel Song, right? Steel Song is not a control deck. It's not.
No.
There may be matchups in which it's acting like that because it's able to 1-for-1 and out certain cards, but it's not control. It is not a categorically control archetype. Okay.
If only there was something in the middle of like aggro and control.
Yeah.
Something in the middle.
Right.
Like the middle of the ranges, if it was on a point, one over.
Because Amber Steel Song is a very good description or a good example of what mid-range is. It's a perfect example of what mid-range would be. And Jim, what is that? What is mid-range?
It's exactly the 2, kind of like the best of both worlds. You get to play a little bit of control stuff. You get to play a little bit of aggressive stuff. So if there's ever that case where you need to also be able to end the game fast against control decks, you can do that. You can grind a little bit as well. But Ruby is kind of the king of grinding games out because it does not have that flat damage amount. It is just get rid of card. Where if you play a Grab Your Swords and they have a Tamatoa out, you're not getting rid of Tamatoa.
Right.
It's not happening.
Right. Steel has a very difficult time with getting rid of Tamatoa.
Yes. But how they get around that is, since they're fast, end the game before they get to that point.
Yep.
You have that little switch that you can play around with of, okay, do I need to grind this game out a little bit? Or do I try to end this as soon as possible?
Yeah. Yeah. So typically, historically, if you're playing a mid-range deck and you're playing against an aggro deck, you want to play you want to play more control, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're playing against control, okay, you want to play more aggro. You want to get under the control deck. Okay. Yeah. So that's mid-range. Okay. The last archetype here, it's combo. Jim, could you explain to our audience what we mean? What is a combo deck?
Dan, please don't make me talk about it.
Why?
I just never like playing combo, man. All right. It's you get out a couple key pieces of cards inside of your deck. You don't really worry about what it is your opponent's doing because it's, I want to get these cards out. Mm-hmm. Once you get these cards out, and as long as everything goes okay, you kind of just win the game pretty much instantly.
Yeah.
Right? You get things set up, nice order, get all your ducks in order.
Dominoes
I think that's the
same. Yeah, you set your dominoes up.
Yeah, you set your dominoes up, and once it's time, you just push it over.
Yep.
Watch everything fall into place, and now the game's over. Hope aggro doesn't just win the game before you get to set up everything. So now it's a race at this point.
Yep.
And, there will be times where you have 0 lore and your opponent is now really close to winning the game. Mm-hmm. But since you have everything set up in a line and everything's good, combo just comes out of nowhere, gets like 15 to 20 lore in one turn, and just ends the game as fast as possible.
Yeah. Good. So basically, like when Jim, did you quest for 20 or did you activate the dime for 20? What was it with Tamatoa?
I don't remember.
I can't remember if you quested.
That's right. I'm fairly certain I quested for 20.
Is that what it was? Okay. Because it was exact. Certain. Whatever it was you did exactly 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no. I didn't quest. I had dime out, and dime was able to get me to the 20.
Okay, so it was the dime. Okay.
That's what it was.
So it was the dime.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's two examples of combo decks right now.
There was actually another one, Dan. We forgot about it.
Okay. So the first one, it's Emerald Steel Beast Relentless. Okay.
Yeah.
Beast Relentless, you're able to pop off. Okay. I don't know, but I did. Somehow I forgot about my favorite Little Mermaid, Ariel Who's It Collector. Oh yeah. Ariel Who's It Collector, 4 ink. You can quest and you play an item you can ready here. If you just pop off with items, you can quest for a lot. I love doing that. The third one, this is a good one. I've also done this one too. I've done all of these. I've done all of these. It's Jafar Wheel.
Now, I don't know if anyone remembers, but when Jafar came out, Dan was very upset.
You were so true. That's so right.
Dan was like, I will never, ever play this. To heck with this card.
Why are you attacking me right now? Why you got to be like that, Jim?
And then, you know what he did? He played it one time, and he's like, yes, I love this deck.
Why you got to out me, man? Dude, that is so true. I forgot about
that. Oh, man. Character development, guys. It's all about telling the story.
Wow. Oh, man. All right. So, before we move on from this, I've mentioned this before. If you've listened to our podcast for a long time, you may have heard this before, but there's an article written by Mike Flores in 1999. 1999, this article was written. It's called "Who's the Beatdown?" It's a very good article, but basically, in tournament setting, okay, in 1v1 settings, when you're sitting down to play a game, right, it's important to know your role in that game, okay? And a lot of it, too, especially in Lorcana, is it does hinge on, but Lorcana is a very different game for Magic, okay? But it hinges on who goes first. And you need to know, are you the aggressor or are you the aggressee, right? And that's where it's who's the beatdown. Am I in the driver's seat, or do I need to be proactive, or do I need to be reactive here? And if you don't understand what your role is every turn, you could lose the game. And we see it time and time again now in Lorcana. Should I quest here? Should I hold back? Am I the one who's supposed to be aggressive? Because if you are and you're not, or you're not and you are, you could make a crucial mistake. Now, this is obviously more important in competitive play, but again, it's a great concept to understand. So again, the article it's named "Who's the Beatdown?" written by Mike Flores, 1999. It's over on Star City Games. We will leave a link to that in the description as well. But I love bringing up that article any chance I can because it's history and it's great. If you've never read it, you need to read it. So be sure to check that out. Okay. Okay. So the last thing I have written here, you should understand yourself and your play style to help you understand and figure out what fun you want to have and how you want to express your fun in Disney Lorcana. So know all these different play styles. Okay. So we've gone over player archetypes. We've gone over deck archetypes. Now let's try and understand the inks. Okay. Let's understand what each of the ink colors represents and how it's going to, and what it does well to help you understand what colors you may want to play. Now, we've also done, before the game came out, we actually went over the ink colors, and we guessed what they were going to do. So I'll leave a link to that down below. Do you remember that video, Jim?
Uh-oh.
Do you remember that one?
I remember us. I don't remember what my answers were.
So, what we did was we looked at, all these descriptions here, we're already on the Lorcana website. So we read them. We read the descriptions, and then we thought, okay, how does this correlate to Magic? And then how can we describe it in that way? Right. So that's what we did. Okay.
Okay.
One thing they also have on the website is that it says no ink is innately good or evil, and both heroes and villains can be found in all 6 inks. Which again, like if you come from Magic, that's very different because there are good and evil colors in Magic.
Now, there might not be good and evil, but there's definitely good and bad. Just throwing that out there.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing I want to mention as well, the card pool is still very small. We're still a year into this. Okay. Card pool small, but I really believe and think these principles have been firmly established by the dev team, by Ravensburger, basically through their card design. So we can very easily determine, yes, this is on theme, this is on principle for these colors. Okay. All right. So we will we're going to try to go through these colors very quickly, and then we'll go one after the other. So I'll start with Amber. And what Lorcana says about Ambers, Amber Glimmers, remember, Glimmers are the characters in the game. Amber Glimmers are purposeful, patient, and dedicated. They're able to pursue causes and ambition with single-minded persistence. They often work within communities, either from above as a leader or from within as a healer, bodyguard, or just a loyal follower. After a year, I look at that description and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense with all of the color, with all the cards that are in the color. Yeah. So, strengths of Amber. What does Amber do very well? Healing. Does healing very, very well. There's a lot of Amber cards that care about healing your characters. Amber's very character focused. Like wherever the characters are, in your deck, in your discard pile, wherever, Amber cares about finding you cards. Be Our Guest is actually a perfect example, I think, of a great Amber card and caring about characters. Okay. Amber cares about singing. Amber does care about protection. There's a lot of bodyguards in Amber. Support as well. We do see quite a bit of support in the keyword support in Amber. So some cards that I think really fit the mold very well. We talked about Daisy Duck. Phenomenal card. Ariel, Spectacular Singer. She's a singer. She costs 3, but she sings for 5. Finds you a song. Hades, Lord of the Underworld, which is interesting. It's, again, coming from other games like Magic, it's interesting because you would think of a light color like Amber to be like good. But I think Hades is a prime example of what Amber is actually looking to do. Fetch you a character card from your discard pile. Revive does the same effect. Rapunzel, Gifted with Healing, the prime card of set 1. And then Snow White, Well-Wisher. Again, on quest, getting a character from your discard back into your hand.
Card's so good.
Yeah, yeah. So that's Amber. I mean, Jim, do you enjoy playing Amber? Is Amber up your alley at all?
Yeah, I like it whenever I want to play aggressive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a lot of good cards there. So that's Amber. Jim's gonna talk about Amethyst. I know Jim loves Amethyst. So Jim,
there we go. Now we're finally at a good color. I mean, good ink. Anywho, Amethyst glimmers are wondrous. For this is the otherworldly ink of sorcerers, sages, animated objects. I was about to say inanimate. That's not even a word.
The brooms are
That's
animated.
Not the word.
Yes.
Yeah. And other glimmers who use their special powers to achieve their aims. They are incredibly powerful when they have access to their amazing abilities, but may land in trouble if they're stripped of those or tapped into powers they cannot control. This after the last year, this is pretty on point, man.
I know, right?
This is pretty on point.
The Madam Mims, you look at all the Madam Mim cards. When you play this card, return another card to your hand or banish them. That is the flavor is so on point for that. You know?
And the thing I really like when they say tap into powers they can't control, it talks about like when you're actually exerting the card to utilize their power, and they don't have the like willpower essentially to be challenged after that.
Yeah.
They will just get banished essentially from like some really low cost stuff. Will just be able to take this out. But they have really good abilities when you're able to control your own board with those Madam Mims. Oh my goodness. Phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah. Amethyst. I love these descriptions because, again, like you were saying, after a year, it's looking at the card pool. We're like, this is so on point. This is very, very good.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So what are some strengths that Amethyst does very well? Man. What does Amethyst do really well? Draws a lot of cards. Draws a lot of cards.
Sorcerers.
There's a lot of sorcerers.
Is a very important keyword sometimes, man.
Manipulation. Amethyst does have a lot of manipulation. You talk about moving damage, exerting other characters on board.
The top of your deck.
There's a lot of stuff. Amethyst is a very, very, very cool color.
So much fun.
Very cool. Okay, here's some cards let's talk about real quick. I mean, I think the quintessential Amethyst card, Friends on the Other Side.
So good, man.
It's so good. I think that is the gold standard for card draw. And now in Shimmering Skies, we have Finders Keepers. But again, I don't think you're ever going to beat the rate of Friends on the Other Side. Yeah. You have there's a lot of Elsas. I said Elsa, but you have a lot of Elsas.
A lot of Elsas
in Amethyst. Sorcerer's Hat, I think, is a really prototype of what a good Amethyst card is. Yep. We talked about the Merlins. We talked about Madam Mim.
Some of the best cards in the game, man.
Correct.
Some of the best.
And then, of course, we already talked about Jafar. Jafar, Striking Illusionist. Yeah. Another fantastic card. So that's Amethyst. Okay. Again, understanding what strengths and weaknesses are, right? Emerald. Let's talk about Emerald real quick. Emerald glimmers are flexible, gifted with the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. They are never caught off guard. Quick thinking, but not necessarily book smart. They navigate their environment, whether physical or social, natural or artificial, with ease. So, Jim, listening to that, how do you think that plays out to where we are now for Lorcana? I think that's a good descriptor.
So when we were just going over this, And like reading over it, it's kind of more difficult for me to visualize a lot of the words that they're utilizing here.
Yeah.
Right. But the more I'm like looking into it, thinking about a lot of the cards, I'm like, okay, navigating their environment. Well, I mean, if there's a character that's damaged on your opponent's side of the board, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have stuff like when it challenges a damaged card or get effect off from damaged thing.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's definitely playing to how the board state is.
Yeah.
And then it's also messing with your opponent as well. It's like, okay, you might be able to take me out, but you know, that's not the only thing that's going to happen. Now you're going to have to lose something because of this.
Correct.
You know, so it's like, yes, it's worded a little weirdly, but when you really start looking at these cards, it's like, this kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Emerald is where we see a lot of the modular cards of giving you options. We see it with Anna, the queen, make the potion. So there's now we're getting a lot of those options now of, hey, you've got options. Which one do you want to pick? So some of the strengths of Emerald. So strengths of Emerald are things like bouncing your opponent's things, discarding your opponent's cards. Just annoying the table is probably a good descriptor of what Emerald does.
Yeah, it's pretty filthy.
Yeah, giving other characters on board things, like giving them reckless, making it so they can't quest, giving their characters ward and evasive. It really is. It's that street smarts, right? It's they're being street smart and really able to just manipulate things of the table.
Oh my goodness.
What?
Dan, I just saw where they say they navigate their environment, whether physical or social.
Yeah, natural or
whether
artificial.
It's in the game on the board or, hey, definitely don't attack this card over here. Now you get to play some politics in these games too.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. They're breaking the fourth wall. Guys, Emerald breaks the fourth wall here.
Yeah. So some cards that really speak to this are cards like Bounce, Diablo, right? Diablo, one of the best card draw cards for multiplayer formats, right? John Silver, Alien Pirate, on play give something on play give something reckless, and then when you quest, give something reckless. Prince John cares about when your opponents discard. Milo Thatch, King of Atlantis. You see Jim's reaction. Like, that's what Emerald does. So, yeah, that's Emerald. So, all right. So, that's Emerald. Jim, talk about Ruby. What's Ruby do?
A little bit of Ruby over here. Ruby Glimmers are daring. They use their speed and bravery to defy the odds. They are often warriors, explorers, and daredevils.
Yep.
You know, in comparison to this text versus the other ones, there's not a whole lot going on.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean there's not a whole lot going on in Ruby.
Right.
There's a lot going on in Ruby.
Yep. Jim, what are some of Ruby's strengths? What does Ruby do very well, in your opinion? What can they do?
You know, there's a keyword called rush, which is a very important.
Yes. Correct.
You know, essentially when, you know, summoning, I mean, waiting for your ink
to dry.
Yeah, that one. Waiting for your cards to dry.
There you go. Yes.
You know, having rush is a very important keyword. Removal on top of it, any form of control. We just love here on this channel. Being able to ready your characters again, lore drain. You know, not a whole lot of cards in this game outside of Ruby can drain lore.
Yeah, I think Ruby has the most cards that drain that remove opponents' lore, and I think Emerald is second after Ruby.
Yeah, and some people wouldn't consider reckless a strength, but when you have a high strength and
6'5"
decent willpower for a low cost, that's a strength right there. Give that to me all day.
And then maybe you have cards that care about Reckless, like Dive Bomb, or there was a card in set 5 in Shimmering Skies that said whenever characters with Reckless challenges turn, gain like 2 lore or something. So yeah, they can turn all that stuff into real big strengths. So,
yeah, or even just having the highest strength on the board, get an effect. Get something.
Yep. So some of the cards that really speak to Ruby: Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, on play banish. The effect is Dragonfire, so you've got that Dragonfire as an action card. Mm-hmm. Be prepared. Okay, I think it's probably the card that people think of when they think of rubies. They think Be Prep. Scar Vicious Cheater. We talked about Maui. Lady Tremaine, Madame Medusa. There's just so many. There's so many great cards in Ruby, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, again, Ruby equals removal. Like that's just how I picture it in my head. It's Ruby removal. There's the R. It's removal. All right, so that's Ruby. Now let's talk about Sapphire. Sapphire is very interesting. Sapphire Glimmers are intellectual, intelligent, and creative. They excel at strategy, invention, and the arts. They can almost always know something, plan something, or invent something that will win the day. I love how they throw in invent, because in set 6 in Azurite Sea, we're getting a lot of inventor support. There's going to be a lot of inventors and then cards that care about inventors. So really, again, I really like this description. I love it because, again, the card that I think of, right, is Hiram Flaversham. You're drawing cards, but what is he doing? He's eating items. He's taking these items and turning them into cards because he's making toys, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the more we talk about this stuff, I'm like, dude, the flavor is just so on point. And Jim, to be honest with you, dude, to me, I've never really played a card game that was full of this much flavor and spoke to me in the way that Disney Lorcana does through the flavor. I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing or if really the dev team and the art direction, they've just and the narrative team, if they've really just nailed it here with this. So, genuine question here. Have you played a game where reading through this stuff, it just all adds up so perfectly before?
You know, it's hard to say because I've been around for so many years.
I know. That's why I'm asking you.
Like, when I think about early, and mind you, like, we're a year into the game.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So I'm trying to think of the first year of Yu-Gi-Oh! There was not a whole lot of synergy and, lore going on because, I mean, the game literally just came out, right?
Yeah, right.
But, like, that's the big thing that Disney Lorcana has going for it. It's you have so many years to kind of just like take some stuff and figure it out into the game, right? But yeah, thinking about a bunch of the other games, it's hard to even compare it because there's no game out there that has so much history.
Right.
It's not even remotely close.
Right. And I genuinely believe the narrative team has just done so well because it's not something that until you sit down and read it and be like, wow, this is just, it all makes so much sense. And like, it really hits you. It just really hits you in a way that telling a good story does. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think they've done a phenomenal job. Yep.
It also seems like with having just so big of a storybook, right? It's like these cards kind of just make themselves, a lot of the times right now. The cards just kind of make themselves.
Yeah. But like to a point, yes, that's true. And the dev team realizes this because I know like when we've talked to Steve Warner before, right? They've talked about the top-down design approach, right? Because they think about the character. What makes this character special? Okay. Like we talk about Hiram Flaversham, thinking about what that character does in the movie. And then, okay, how can we apply that to a card? How can we make his card seem like this is so perfect for what Hiram does? and like they nailed it, right? And so I think that's what you get when you have a top-down design approach. And again, where I think the dev team has just done a phenomenal job. So kudos, guys. Like, keep it up. This is just awesome. It's so cool. So anyway.
Hold on a second. I just had...
What?
Wow. Okay. The biggest revelation of my whole life. Yeah. Okay. Tamatoa, right?
Yes.
So shiny.
Tamatoa.
As to why he gets items from the discard. Because when people throw away stuff in the ocean, they're discarding it, right?
Yes.
And he's just chilling in the water.
Correct.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Right?
I cannot be the only one, dude. I cannot be the only one. People discard this stuff and Tamatoa finds it.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I genuinely, Jim, I didn't even really think about that either. But you're so right. That's another perfect example of the design. It's just another, dude, it's just another reason I love this game, bro. Like, it's so cool. It's genuinely so cool. Okay, so talking about Sapphire cards, right? Okay, strength. What's strengths of Sapphire? Okay, they really care about items. They have some of the best items in the game. Sapphire has the only legendary item thus far in Lucky Dime. Okay. Digging into your deck. Okay. If we're talking about card draw, that's Amethyst, right? Amethyst does that the best. Sapphire's a pretty close second because, again, they're not only just drawing, they're really digging into their deck. Ramp, the only color, no, not only color, but the color that does ramp the best. Support, also Sapphire does support very well. Also does healing. And also item and location quasi-destruction, which we'll talk about that in here in a little bit. Excuse me. Some of the best Sapphire cards that really describe what Sapphire does. Already talked about Tamatoa, so shiny. Talked about Hiram Flaversham and the Popsicle. The Popsicle, I think, is, if you don't think of Lucky Dime, I think you think of Popsicle.
Wow.
It's those two items, right? Talked about Lucky Dime. And then another one of the best Sapphire cards, it's Gaston, Intellectual Powerhouse.
Phenomenal.
Such a great card. On play, look at top 3, put one into your hand, quest for 3, such a good card. So that is Sapphire. Jim is now going to talk about Steel. Jim's got like his colors, man. Jim has got his colors.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful colors.
All right, so Jim, what is Steel all about, man?
Steel glimmers are strong, large, and imposing, armored, or just plain powerful. Steel glimmers can apply huge amounts of brute force to get the job done. So specifically, steel is, looking to have that direct damage. That direct damage that I love so much. Yep. Play an action, play a song, take something out. Something that you thought was safe. If it doesn't have ward, it is gone. Well, all right, sometimes. It's only X amount of damage. So if you play something big enough, it's not getting rid of it.
Right.
That's where Ruby comes in.
True.
But, area of effect damage as well. Mm-hmm. So AoE for short. So something that's going to hit multiple characters at once. So like how Be Prepared banishes all characters out on the field, grab your swords, hits all of your opponent's cards for 2 damage. Sometimes that's just enough to take out a couple things, injure a couple of other cards, but area of effect abilities are phenomenal.
Right.
Aside from that,
no, go ahead.
Aside from that, challenging characters matters as well.
Yeah. Again, reading the description, it says Steel Glimmers can apply huge amounts of brute force to get the job done. Not just through like spells, right? But also through challenging. Steel is like the color that that says you can challenge anybody you want to. They don't have
to. Doesn't matter if it's exerted or not.
Ready, doesn't matter. You can challenge them. You challenge them. So yeah, if you're ever building a Challenge Matters deck, they're probably in steel. They're probably in steel.
A little bit of steel, a little bit of red. Play it together.
Yep. And what are some other strengths that steel has, Jim?
Resist is a pretty good effect.
Yeah.
Keyword, you know, resist +1 just to reduce all damage dealt to you by 1. Mm-hmm. So if they are playing steel, well, now your grab your swords just got cut in half. Mm-hmm. Or the resist +2 is now just getting rid of those effects completely. Yeah. But then it also does have item and location destruction as well.
Yep. So some cards that I think are quintessential to this color, we can't not talk about Smash. Like Smash was the card that we would always talk about in set 1, dealing the 3 damage, right?
Yeah.
You got Smash, let the Storm Rage on, grab your sword. Like that still is. Anybody got to grab your sword? Anybody? AoE? Come on. Whole New World.
Someone's always going to ask that at the table. If you
got
steel gun.
Exactly. Yep. Whole New World is like another quintessential. The wheel. It's a wheel card.
Yep.
Gone to.
What?
Gone to is an amazing card. No. And somebody? Anybody? You? Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. All right. Never mind. Sorry, guys. And then Pick a Fight. Pick a Fight is like one of my favorite cards. Yeah. I love that card so much.
Wow.
Okay. So that's all the colors. And that's what they all do. So again, this, after going through now player archetypes, deck archetypes, what all these colors do, hopefully now, after we've gone through that, you have a solid basis, a solid baseline and understanding of all of these different concepts. Okay. So now we've talked about all of that. Okay. I think let's now move on and let's start talking about choosing your deck. Okay. This section here, I kind of want to run through very quickly because it's important to understand this. In this section here, it's choosing your colors. Okay. Now, the rule set for Disney Lorcana, and the reason I want to go through it is it's kind of fairly simple in Disney Lorcana, right? Because the rule set for this game is that your deck can contain up to 2 ink colors. That is the normal rule set. So you can have 1 color or you can have 2 colors, okay? Not so in other card games. You can have like any number of colors you want. But when you're only able to pick 2, you got to make those choices carefully. You have to choose your ink colors carefully. That means like you need to know what your color does and what it cannot do. You need to know the strength and you need to know the weakness. This is different. Like it's difficult when you're then sitting down to play multiplayer, right? Because you may sit at a table where the entire table, 3 of you don't have an answer for the 4th player. Like that can happen. So know what each color does well and how adding it to your deck can positively and negatively affect your deck. We've talked about some of these decks earlier, right? When talking about the deck archetypes, right? Control, aggro, so on and so forth, right? So speaking of the 2 colors, right? Maybe we see some new formats down the line that expand this rule. This is one reason I'm very excited for Heroic. Because I would love to add 1 more color, just 1 more color into my deck. Okay, just adding those options really is going to expand what your deck can do and what options that you now have. Okay, but when you're first building your deck, I think if you're just new to deck building, stick with the normal rule set. Right, stick with go 2 colors. Here's what I'm looking to do, and how can I best build around that strategy? Okay. So if you're new to deck building, don't try something fancy, right? Stick to a normal core constructed deck. Okay. And then try and build around whatever strategy you want to build around. Okay. Now another reason, another reason I'm excited for Heroic is the 100 card singleton. Right, singleton meaning you can only have 1 copy of a unique card. So you see a card, you're never seeing that card again. If you put it in your inkwell, you say bye-bye. It makes it so every single time you play that deck, it's going to be a different experience. It's going to be very different. So the more cards that we get makes me more excited for deck building for formats like that. The inks and the colors are not created equal. They are absolutely not. Each card has its own set of strengths and weaknesses, which is why it's important to understand your colors and what it can do well and what it cannot do very well. Okay? If you're in Ruby, guess what you cannot do? You have 0 interaction with items. 0. You can't do anything with items. Somebody drops a lucky dime. You're looking at the table. Can someone else deal with this? Because I sure as crap can't.
Yep.
So it's important to know that. Okay. So know what you do well. Every single color can do something different. I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say this on Blue in the Face. We're a year in. It's so weird having this discussion over such a limited card pool. Okay. Speaking of that, though, there really may only be one version of a viable monocolor deck, for instance. Like, that's where I think the more cards we get, the more opportunities for deck diversity we're going to see in multiplayer formats. Okay.
What color do you think it is?
What color? What?
May only be one version of
what I'm saying is every color probably only has one.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
Every color has like maybe one deck. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I mean by that. Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to building your deck and choosing your inks, be wary and cognizant of your color choices and know what you can and can't do. Like you need to know that. Okay. And again, this is another reason I'm very extremely intrigued about Heroic and just the option of adding a third color, just more options. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So now that we've touched on that, let's move on to tips. Okay. So last episode we went through like fundamentals and basics, right? And then we ended it with applications. That's what we're going to do now. Is let's talk about applications, okay? This is an intro to deck building episode, and we haven't really talked about deck building yet, okay? Which is okay, because again, I think in order for you to build your first deck or your third deck or whatever, you really do have to have a firm grasp of the basics. Yep. And the basics really are not just how to build a deck, but what are the colors and what do they do? Like, what's a deck, right? So now that we should have if you're listening to this, you should have a pretty good understanding and grasp of the concepts and the colors, strengths and weaknesses of each color. Okay. So now we're going to touch on some like broad strokes, deck building tips and philosophies that you should consider when you're building a deck, specifically again for multiplayer. Because again, if you're building a deck for core constructed 1v1, what you're trying to do is something different, okay? These decks really have to be able to do more than a 1v1 deck can do, okay? They really need to be able to do a little bit more, okay? So one other thing to note very quickly, be sure to know the lore total you're playing to, because that informs deck building too a little bit, okay? Mm-hmm. Core Construct is up to 20 lore. Our multiplayer madness, normally what we're doing is up to 20 lore. But Heroic and maybe potentially some other future formats, you may be going up to 30 lore. Don't do 40. You'll be sitting there for a long time. But 30, I've heard 30 is another sweet spot as well. So know what that is. Okay. All right. So I've got some numbers here too. Okay. The first one. And Jim, I want you to tell me if you agree with this statement. In multiplayer deck building, card draw is king. Card draw is king. Do you agree with that statement, Jim?
You know, it is extremely, extremely important. But to say it's more than the second one we're about to go over?
Yep. Once we get there, I'll explain why I think it's more important. Because you can't have the second one without the first one.
True.
That's why.
True.
All right.
True.
So So you've heard that why. We'll get into the second one here in a minute. But you need card draw. It's extremely important. Okay. So knowing that, the next step is know what your options are in your colors. Know what there are. So what I did, all of these totals for all of these points, basically what I did is I opened up Dreamborn and I just did a quick searching and then started counting numbers. Okay. So for draw a card, I went into Dreamborn and then looked at every color and then just typed draw a card. So basically looked at cards that said draw a card on it. Okay. Amethyst and Sapphire, again, like we talked about, have like the most and arguably best options for card draw. Every color has some card draw, okay? You need to know what they are, okay? Amber, and Jim, if you actually click these links, it will take you to what all the options are, okay?
Beautiful.
So Amber, there's 14 card draw options, which does that surprise you, Jim? If I told you that there's 14 Amber cards that say draw a card on it, is that surprising to you?
Wow.
No, this is through 5 sets, remember, guys. Through 5 sets.
Isn't this less? I see 3 Stitch Rock Stars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's definitely less. I forgot that. So that's actually my bad. So it's 14, 13, 12, 11.
It's 10.
It's 11. 13.
It's 10.
Oh yeah, that's 10. Yep, that's right. That's 10. That's right, because there's four extras in there. Yeah, that's 10. That's the one that I forgot to update. I updated all the other ones. But that's one I forgot to update. 10. But still 10. It's double digits.
Yeah. And the one we still care the most about has been here since set 1.
Yep, Rapunzel. Like the best one. So like some of the best ones, again, 2 Rapunzels. So you have Gifted with Healing and then Gifted Artist. Both of those are very, very good pieces of card draw. You don't see a lot of Stitch Rockstar anymore, but it is card draw. Okay.
Sure.
So know what cards in your color that say draw a card. Okay. So that's Amber. Amethyst, there's 23 cards. Emerald is 15. Ruby's 4. Sapphire, I'm saying it's 20 because there's 10 cards that just say draw a card and then 10 cards that say look at the top X cards and put some into your hand.
That is which is better than drawing a card.
Correct. And Steel has 20. But a lot of Steel is looting. Draw a card, discard a card type thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not plussing on your cards. Okay.
Yeah.
So
actually minusing.
Correct. So 3 of the best Amethyst cards for card draw we talked about. Let's goodness gracious. Friends on the Other Side. So Friends on the Other Side. All of the Merlin Rabbit is probably one of the best ones that are used. That's used a lot.
Magic Broom.
Yeah. You have Magic Broom, Illuminary Keeper, and then Chernobog's Followers, Creatures of Evil. I think those are probably going to be your best ones that draw cards. And then honestly, these 2 locations, Queen's Castle, Mirror Chamber, and then the Library Gift for Belle.
Yeah, phenomenal cards.
There's so many great cards in Amethyst. Emerald, I think we said, was it 14 or something? Obviously, you have Diablo, is a huge card for this. And honestly as well, yes, Prince John as well. Donald Duck, Perfect Gentleman, especially for this format, is probably like the card that if you're an Emerald, a lot of players tend to gravitate to, right? Ruby only has 4, and that's why you need to know what it is, because if you're ever in the color, you're like, I have to get that. If I ever play Ruby, I always have Queen of Hearts Sensing Weakness in my deck. Always without fail. But these other 2, Medallion Waits and Sumerian Talisman,
phenomenal.
Give me Medallion Waits. I love Medallion Waits. Medallion Waits is a phenomenal card. Card that I love pairing Medallion Waits up with is Scar Vicious Cheater. Scar Vicious Cheater has Rush, and then when he challenges and banishes a character, he gets to ready himself. So, love doing that. So, these 2 cards, Medallion Waits and Queen of Hearts, are really, really good, especially in the color where especially again, you pair this up with steel, where you're looking to challenge often. Like you're going to be able to get card advantage very, very, very well. Okay, so that's ruby. Sapphire, so many good options in Sapphire. There's way too many. Jim, if you had to pick your best piece of card draw that you classify as card draw on Sapphire, what are you going with? What card?
What format are we playing?
Multiplayer.
Multiplayer?
Yeah, multiplayer.
So for me personally, nothing to hide is phenomenal. Yeah. Because it's not good. Just about the card draw. It's about the information as to what your opponent has.
Yep.
And not just one opponent, not just two, all three of your opponents.
Yep.
The card is phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah. That's good. Oh goodness. Visions of the Future. New one from set 5. Pay 2. Look at top 5. Look at top 5, dude.
Yeah. Yes. What's the one drop? Look at top 2. Put one to your hand.
That's what I'm trying to remember. It's from set 1.
It's from set 1. We love this card.
1. Somebody inked it. And I'm like, how dare you? Develop your brain.
Develop your brain.
I
couldn't brain hard enough to remember.
Yeah, I absolutely love that card. So Sapphire, so many good cards. Steel actually has some decent options. One of my favorites, again, is Captain Hook's Rapier. I love that card. It cares about Captain Hook, but the card draw does not care about Captain Hook. Another one of my favorite pieces of card draw is Weight Set. Love that card. If you're playing bodyguards, Musketeer Tabard is another good one. I was going to say
that one's my favorite. Musketeer's Tabards.
Yep. One card that I haven't played a lot with yet, but I want to play with more is Raya Unstoppable Force. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you can draw a card. So we see that effect on a lot of other cards like Jafar Dreadnought. Simba Lost Prince is another one. Same type of effect. But the thing with Raya is she's a 3/6/2, 3 strength, 6 willpower, 2 lore. But she also has Challenger +2 and Resist +2. Yes, please.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. And then probably the quintessential piece of card draw and steel, especially in competitive formats, is Beast Tragic Hero. Yeah. Ever since that card dropped in set 2, steel players have been playing that like crazy. So know what your card draw is. Know what it is. Okay. What's point 2, Jim? So point 1, card draw is king. What is point number 2? What's point number 2?
Board presence. All right. So why I'm also like board presence over card draw? Because when we go over aggro versus control, control can have all the cards they want, but if the game is over, it doesn't matter. Board presence, it's correct. So important.
Like
man.
You're correct. But if I'm the control player and I have board presence, okay. That's a thing.
Yes.
Like that's why I'm saying, like, and that's why I say
presence is huge.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. And that's why to me, card draws here. Board presence is like slightly below. Slightly below. So you can't, that's what I'm saying. Like you can't go too far. You can't stray too far away from not having board presence. Like if you want to have a bunch of spells and everything and a bunch of actions, okay, you can do that. But you realize if there's other players that don't have a board presence as well, you're gonna be left in the dust. Like that's the thing. Like if you're sitting down in a 4-player pod, right? One player has a bunch of characters, and the other 3 players are just playing actions. Actually, that one, who knows? Like if 2 players are playing actions, like in steel, and just damage, I don't know, that one player with all the characters, maybe SOL, who knows?
The thing I'm also considering, right, is like card draw and board presence are like so kind of like neck and neck for me.
Yeah.
But it's also not just card draw, it's card value, right? So
yes, sure.
It's like if my board presence is always I'm looking to 2-for-1 you, you now need to be drawing essentially twice as many cards as what I'm doing.
Correct.
Right. If I'm trying to make it to where my cards are always going to be a 2-for-1, I will slowly outvalue you. And the card draw itself doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's the value at that point you're getting from your cards. And board presence is important.
Correct. But generally speaking, though, if you're playing characters, you're going to be the one who's slower. Right? Because if I have to then answer my opponents, then, okay, I play a character, which 9 times out of 10, okay, maybe not 9 times, maybe 75% of the time, you're not winning, you're not advancing your win condition the turn you play them. Unless you are doing like challenge matters and you're gaining lore off of challenging immediately, right? That's the exception right now, I think, right? But if you're not able to outvalue your opponent the moment you put the card down, you're at the disadvantage because you have to wait for it to get back to you.
Correct.
Okay, sure, your opponent was able to take care of your thing. Yes, you outvalued them because you 2-for-1 them. They had to use 2 cards to take care of yours. But now you're just right back where you are. Okay, but you have to capitalize on that. You got to be able to capitalize on it. So it's slower. It's slower, right?
It's definitely slower.
Yeah.
Depending on the card. If it's goat, man, game's over.
Yeah, true. True. If you're playing a goat, bouncing the goat, right. How many times have we heard of just give me a goat, give me a goat?
Goat off the top?
Goat off the top. Goat off the top. You know how many times I needed that too?
That's why it's so hard for me to say like which one is just
right. Know. And that's why we're having this discussion.
They're tied.
Because they're so close. They're so close to each other. It's crazy.
In this game, they're tied. I think in other card games, card draw is over board presence.
Yeah. But again, from a deck building perspective, you have to understand and realize you need both. Like you have to have characters, and particularly in multiplayer, you need sources of card draw. You need to effectively, efficiently have ways to draw cards into your hand. Okay. Yep. So if you're an Emerald, you're probably playing Diablo, right? If you're an Amethyst, you have a ton of options. If you're in Sapphire, you have a ton of options. If you're in Ruby, all right, you don't have a ton of options, but you have good options.
It's a good thing you got a second color.
Yeah, good thing you have a second color. Right. So yeah, card draw is king. Board presence is everything. They are neck and neck with each other, okay?
Yeah.
But this leads into the next point of your ink curve. To me, I think you need to have characters in every slot in your ink curve. You should have 1-drops, 2-drops. You need to have a good mix, okay? Why? You need to be able to affect the board state all the time. You need to be able to affect the board state on turn 1, turn 2, 3, and all throughout the game. You got to be able to affect the board state. And if you don't have characters on board, it makes it harder to do that. Okay. Yes, if you have removal, a lot of times removal is 1-for-1. What are you going to do if your opponent has 4 characters on board? Okay. And like that has happened in a recent episode. Like opponent has 5 characters on board. I got a Dragonfire. Like that ain't going to do it. And that was a game where, again, like I'm just playing around, but I have 1 character on board and I wasn't able to see any other characters. And what happened was like I thought about what I did there, and I came to the conclusion, I'm like, I did not build a good deck. I was upset with myself because I'm like, this was just not a good deck. I did not build an effective deck here. And like it's good to understand that and realize that. But again, you got to have characters at these slots. Very, very, very important. Jim, would you agree with that?
That your deck was bad? Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I feel attacked.
Oh, that's not what we were talking about.
I feel so attacked here.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing of, it is important to have that curve of creatures or characters, because it is important to have a board presence. And even if you're not looking to control your opponent's stuff, with the cards it is that you're playing, just having that threatening presence there is sometimes just enough to stall the game out to get to those points. And for what Dan was going off of in terms of like if your opponent has like 4 cards out on board and you have like this low single target removal, I'm more so thinking of like at the 1-drop spot, if you're going to play a creature that's a 1-drop or play like a Fire the Cannons, I can see the Fire the Cannons because yes, it's a 1-for-1, but what you're doing is stalling the game that one extra turn.
Right.
And when you're looking to get into that later stage of the game to really take it over, sometimes that's just all you need.
Right. Yeah, you need to be able to. You just need to be able to affect the board on.
You need to do
stage.
something every single turn.
Right.
Essentially.
Right. But the thing is, though, in a 4-player pod, very rarely is it going to be 1-for-1.
Yeah.
Very rarely is it going to be 1-for-1. And your characters are going to provide you more value over the long term, even if it's a character that has low strength. Even if it's a character that has 2 strength. If you have a 2/5, I can deal with opponent 1 and opponent 2 here with 1 character. Yep. You can't do that with Dragonfire. You can't do that with Madame Medusa, which is why Madame Medusa is a perfect example. Phenomenal card, especially in the competitive metagame. Not that great of a card in multiplayer. It's just not. Lady Tremaine, way better in multiplayer.
Sign me up.
Like, you need to understand that. Okay?
Yeah.
So have options at every slot. Be able to affect the board in every single stage of the game. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Next thing let's talk about. Be sure you have some answers to items. Okay. Again, just like removal and card draw before, right? I looked through Dreamborn and I looked for cards that said like banish chosen item, right? Same thing with items, right? Locations. You need to be able to answer locations, but locations are easier to answer because you can answer them directly with your characters, right? Mm-hmm. Except McDuck Manor, dude. That's a 4/9. The 9, dude.
Yeah, there's not a lot of stuff that can
dude.
Take that
my goodness, bro. Yeah. So again, characters they are able to answer your locations directly. They can't answer items though. Okay. Now, not every single color on its own can answer items. Currently, there's only 11 cards. 11 cards through 5 sets, which say on the card, banish chosen item in some way, shape, or form. Sapphire does say put chosen item. Because again, the way Sapphire interacts is put cards into your inkwell. Put cards into your opponent's inkwell. Sapphire ramps. Sapphire ramps you. Sapphire ramps your opponents. Okay? That's Sapphire. Emerald, 4 cards. 4 cards that say banish chosen item. I'm sorry. Emerald. Emerald has 4 cards. Sapphire, 3 cards that say put chosen item. I think I did that right. Let me double check this real quick. Because I have Sapphire, put chosen item. Yeah, Cusco and Hideaway. Those are the 2 from Sapphire.
All right. So 3 banish chosen item.
No, I think that other one was it was for banished character actually. I think I put that on the wrong slot actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. So if you do banish, so like banish, you're banishing. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Banish chosen item. 3, technically 2 cards because one of them is launch. You're banishing your own item to do that.
Yeah.
The 2 cards that banish an item for your opponent glean, but they gain 2 lore off of that, and then Judy hops. And then Judy hops is its player draws a card. So you can do that for you or your opponent. So yeah, 2 cards that say banish chosen item, and then two cards which say put chosen item into opponent's inkwells, into their inkwell or whatever. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I confused myself there. So it's 2 and 2. So there's 4 cards that you can interact with your opponent's items in Sapphire. Steel has 6. Actually, I think it's 7. Actually,
wait, isn't there also Hideaway?
Hideaway is one of the 2.
Oh,
Hideaway and Cusco are the 2 which put chosen item.
I got you.
And then the 2 which banish are Glean and Judy Hopps.
Gotcha. Okay.
So in steel, you have, I think it's actually 7 because I don't think that list included I find in my platinum. So steel has the most. And how many times, let's see, I'm going to stress this again. You need to know what your colors can do and what they can't do. How many times have you heard, Jim, how many times have you heard, boy, I really hope the steel player can deal with this?
Can flatten them all. Yeah. Oh my goodness, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully, again, 3 colors. Right now there's 3 colors that have options with item destruction or item interaction. Know what it is, and you need to include it in your deck. If you're in the colors, include it. If you're not, boy, I really hope you're playing with somebody who can deal with them. Which, again, is another reason I like a format like Heroic, where we have an option of adding in a 3rd color into our deck. Okay. So, know what you can do, know what you can't do. Okay. Non-character-based removal matters. What do I mean by that? Okay. Ways in which you are able to out your opponent's characters outside of challenging is important as well. We already talked about board presence is everything. Okay. And we've already talked about this, right? From the standpoint of you need to have options in your entire curve to effectuate the board state. Okay. And last week we touched on removal. Okay. So I'm going to go through some more cards for each color that does some sort of removal outside of challenging. Okay. Now, another thing to note too is if you're building a challenging base deck, we already talked about what steel does very well, right? Challenging ready characters. Okay. If you're in steel, great. Okay. And like you have those options. Other colors do not have those options. Okay. If challenging is your main source of removal, you may not need additional sources of removal. It's never a bad thing to include. Okay. The more board wipes we get, hopefully we see more board wipes. I'm sure we will see more board wipes, but you need to know if you have access to that. Ruby does removal the best. Like I said, R equals removal. And again, Sapphire interacts through the inkwell, right? Amber, there's 3 cards where there's removal. You've got World's Greatest Criminal Mind, you have Mini, and then there's one that cares. You can banish a chosen character that was challenged this turn if they weren't removed.
Hey, real quick, do you think we will see a Sapphire essentially let it go, but board wipe?
Yeah.
Board wipe put it all into Inkwell.
Yeah, I 100% think we see that. I'm waiting for that, dude. And that's gonna be
that's
sick.
Gonna be nutty.
That's gonna be nuts. that is gonna be super nuts. How much you think it cost? And is it a song?
That's what I don't know.
Is it a song?
I feel like it would be somewhere around 7.
Yeah. 7 or 8, right? Because you have Under the Sea.
I can see 8 because it ramps you essentially,
and it's probably inkable. I'm calling it being inkable because it ramps.
Hope so.
Because it ramps, it's got to be inkable. You know what I think it is. I think it's going to be from Mulan. Because here's what I'm imagining. Right, it's from Mulan when they're on the mountain battling the Huns, and then the avalanche comes.
Well, we have avalanche in steel,
I know we have avalanche. I know we do. But I know that. But I'm just imagining that
snow comes in and buries it all, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking, man. But I like where your head's at. I love where your head's at.
That'd be sick.
That'd be sick because we need more board wipes. We need more. Yeah, we need more of them. Mm-hmm. And that's on theme. That is so on theme. So okay. So again, Amber 3 cards. Again, some of these numbers may be slightly off. Okay, but I just went and I tried my best to type stuff in and find what the cards were. Amber, there's 3 cards. Amethyst has 1 card, and that's Yzma. Emerald, a lot of Emerald's removal is conditional on the card being damaged, or even challenge as well, because you have like Cheshire Cat, you have Cruella. There's 4 cards. I guess there's 5. I have Anna, Ring the Bell, You're Welcome, Cheshire Cat, and then there's Cruella DeVille. Those are the ones that I can think of. Maybe there's more, but that's okay. Yeah, and 2 Cheshire Cats, the big one and the little one. The Cheshire Cat is the big one, 8-drop. You can exert the Cheshire Cat, banish chosen damaged character. And then the little one, when it's like a 0/3, right? I think it's 0/3/2 or something. But when it's banished in a challenge, banish chosen or banish the challenging character or something.
Cheshire Cat ability is essentially the same as Philip, right? Oh wait, no, that one's on shift though.
Which one?
Prince Philip. Bounce everything that is damaged.
You mean banish everything that's damaged?
Banish everything. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. The small Cheshire Cat.
Cheshire Cat, the 8-drop is
no. I'm not. No, not the 8-drop. The 3-drop.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah. The big one, the 8-drop is you can exert it and then banish chosen damaged character.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Ruby has 13 cards. Plus, be prepared. 13.
Let's go, Ruby.
Yeah. Sapphire has 2. Hades and Let It Go, which is still great. They're still great cards. Don't get me wrong. And then all of Steel is direct damage. Yes, this is not hard removal. Somebody pointed that out, and I'm like, you're correct. That is absolutely correct. It's direct damage. Sure, there may be times where you remove it, but that is different from a hard removal spell or a hard removal card.
I think the term like hard or soft removal is more of a bounce. Hard removal is it off the board like
all the time. If it's off the board all the time, which is not,
so like even
which
going
is
into
not
discard,
direct damage.
Yeah. Being direct damage doesn't necessarily mean it isn't hard removal, because if you get rid of something that has 2 willpower, it's hard removed off the board.
Correct, but it's not always. Dragonfire is always hard removal, which is why I'm saying there's a different bucket. We're putting Steel in a different bucket. Steel is always in a different bucket, and that bucket is direct damage. I'm more so just
trying to like let them know like hard removal means if it just gets off the board in terms of goes to the inkwell or goes to discard. Soft removal is a bounce effect, essentially.
Correct. And you are 100% correct. Okay. But you have to be able to differentiate, right? Yes, in this instance, in an instance, yes, this card is viewed as hard removal. This is just like the conversation we were having at the beginning of the episode about deck archetypes. I'm more concerned about, we're looking at 13,000 foot level. We're not looking at nuances. Okay. Yeah. And Jim often does this, and that's just how Jim is. He always thinks about the nuanced takes, which you need to understand baselines and basics and fundamentals before you can then talk about and really discuss and think about nuances. Okay.
Remember when we brought up the art versus the science?
Yes.
I mean, I've been in this game so long. I just always go into science a little bit.
Correct.
But yeah, I just also, for everyone listening at home or newer people, right? Like there's hard removal and soft removal. Just because something deals direct damage doesn't mean that it's not considered hard removal also.
Right.
Because it's not a soft removal.
Correct. And my point, it's direct damage is not, direct damage is not always hard removal. Direct damage is direct damage. That's it. If you want to take it a step further, okay, we can have that discussion, but direct damage is direct damage.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Hard removal means a certain thing. Hard removal means, does this one card take care of remove this other card from the board and put it into your discard pile.
Yeah.
That is a 1-for-1. Okay. And yes, if I play and then along came Zeus on your 4 damage character, yes, that card is now into your inkwell. But
80% of the time, that's hard removal.
Correct. And we're talking, and that's why I'm saying you cannot say that it's always hard removal. There needs to be that separate category to think about it. So, but yeah,
60% of the time it works every time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. All right. So we talked about all of these few applications for deck building, right? There was one other thing that I had that I just thought about, and I can't remember what it was now. I was literally in the.
Sorry, I ruined it for you.
No, it's fine. I can't remember what it was. It'll come to me when I go to bed tonight. Is basically what's going to happen. So anyway, okay, guys, that was a lot. That was a lot that we just threw on you. I understand, but it's important to understand the fundamentals, the foundations, and the basis of deck building for Disney and Lorcana, right? And that's why, and then we did talk about some applications, right? Because I wanted to make sure we got in some applications, for you when you're going to your next multiplayer night or whatever. Like, what are some concepts that you can think about to help you in your deck building journey? So hopefully everything that we've talked about can provide you with some good information for, honestly, for your journey through Disney and Lorcana. So with all of that, I want to kick it to you guys. What do you all think? Is there some things that we missed? Is there something here that we talked about that you're like, man, I never really thought about that? Hard removal, soft removal. Man, what is Jim talking about? This is really good information. I never really thought about this stuff. So thank you for that. Card draw, board presence. Man, there's a lot of stuff here that I never really thought about when I was just trying to build that. I was just trying to do puppies, man. I was just trying to build a fun theme, right? There's a lot. There's a lot of stuff here.
Puppies isn't for you.
Yeah, maybe it's not.
Maybe puppies isn't for you.
Yeah, maybe you built it and you played. And you're like, man, this just was not fun. Well, maybe you are a Spike. Maybe you're a Johnny. I don't know. Maybe you're a Timmy. If you're a Timmy, I don't think puppies are for you, man. Puppies are more like a Johnny thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, speaking of that, what player type are you? What player archetype do you think you and your play style fall under? Let us know down below in the comments. So with that being said, again, thanks everybody for hanging out with us. But again, if you're watching us over on YouTube, don't forget, hit that like button. If you enjoyed this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on bell notifications so you can be notified when we release more episodes of Disney and Lorcana, of the Hobbies and Happiest podcast, a Disney and Lorcana podcast in the future. And then if you're listening to us or you want to listen to us, you're watching and you want to listen, find us on your favorite podcasting platform of choice, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, and add us to your podcasting list. Just add us over there. Hit that plus button, okay? And again, if you want to further support us even more, you can head over to patreon.com/hobbies and happiness to sign up in one of our 3 tiers for our Hobbies and Happiness patron, where you can honestly see some behind the scenes stuff, what's going on. I posted a video, I think a week ago. I was on a roof. It was a Friday. I was on a roof for work, and I'm like, I'm just going to record a quick video for our patrons. And so I did that. It was kind of fun. And you get some sweet behind the scenes access as well. So again, check out all that stuff down below in the description. Thank you again for hanging out with us. This was a fun episode to put together, a fun episode to talk about with Jim. I always loved getting Jim's insights because, again, he's been doing this a little bit longer than I have, and he's got some stuff that, I don't tend to not think about. And we've got our differing views and our differing opinions, which is always good to get those here on the podcast. So, Jim, thanks a lot for hanging out. This was a lot of fun. And you know what, guys? We will see you next week. And in the words of Mickey Mouse, we'll see y'all real soon.